Okay, mic check. Hello guys, morning. It seems that I got my time zones mixed up. We should have started like about 25 minutes ago. That's my bad. I need to adjust my clock. Apologies for that, guys. Let me just fix my audio really quickly. Hold on a second.
Playing from administrator.
Okay. All right. Let me check this audio here. Hold on. One thing to check. What? All right, mic check. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm back with the audio. All right, can somebody speak? Let me just test to see if I'm hearing you now. Hello? Anybody there? You guys hearing me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, great. I can hear you. All right, lovely. Yes, guys, as I said, apologies. I got the time. I'm in a different time zone than you, so I seem to have gotten the timing mixed up on my clock here. It is now 10:28 where you guys at, so that means we're supposed to start like about a half an hour ago. All right, so we're moving on to Illustrator today, and I want you to fire up your illustrators. Give me 1 second. Let me open up my Illustrator so we can tackle the topic for today. Hey, where's everybody else? I only seen a few people. Did they come and leave?
Not sure, no,
Are
sir.
you-
Sure, no, sir.
You're not sure, yeah, because you would be in your own waiting rooms. That's correct. Okay. All right. Can you guys send out a text reminder for me, please? Just say apologies for the late start. And we are getting ready to roll out. So just fire up your illustrators and then we'll talk. All right, give me 1 minute. Let me open my programs. Slideshow, where's slideshow? Set up, there we go. All right. Okay, guys. Mic check. You guys hearing me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So welcome to another exciting week. I feel so happy that a member of your classmate could ring me up to say, "Hey, sir, aren't we supposed to be having class now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, in the next half an hour or so." They said, "No, it's 10 o'clock now, sir." I'm like, "What?" So I feel good to know that I'm hoping that it's out of the excitement of the class that somebody would call me and say, "Hey, sir, we can't wait to have this exciting class. When are we going to start?" Was it out of excitement? Huh? Were you guys hoping that class was off for this week? I wonder which one it was. Anybody want to volunteer an answer?
Would lead more to the first answer.
More to the very. Are we being politically correct here? Or, anyway, at least for me, I can say that it is, I like to teach this stuff. And I'm always on the hunt for cool programs and cool tech that I think will help you guys out in CSA and beyond CSA, right? So today is our final Illustrator exercise, which is, this one is an important one. We're not going to touch it just yet. Just to kind of get everybody on the same page, because we went into this new thing last week called vector graphics, and we realized that vector graphic has no pixels, and we looked at some of the advantages and disadvantages, right? We also, I hope that you guys didn't forget about dealing with things that has pixels. So for example, how do you work out what size an image should be for a particular artwork that you have to pin up, right? So we're going to revisit that a little bit just to make sure that your brain cells are keeping this information refreshed, right? We kind of looked at the example of, examples of what is vector versus pixels, and we learned that pixels are finite, meaning you can zoom in to a certain amount and then that's it. It becomes blurry. But a vector image is practically 100% sharp, no matter how close you view it. And then I'm hoping for those of you that successfully completed the last exercise, you would have started to mess with anchors and path and Bezier curves, right? So those curves, let me bring it up here. Go to a new page. Right. So those are the kind of curves where you get these handles, right? So if I click on these, kind of zoom in here. Right. So you may notice that you get these handles and you had to move them around in order to edit the curves, right? So is there anybody here that found the Bezier curving to be annoying? Because you would have had to manipulate that to do the last exercise. Anybody that struggled with it?
I wouldn't say struggle with it, sir, but somewhat a difficulty getting it how you wanted it to, and sometimes you just have to
Right.
leave it because,
Right. So, I mean, some people define Illustrator as literally just manipulating Bezier curves all day, right? My older sister who works in publishing, right? I mean, I call her the Illustrator and InDesign queen, right? Because that's, you might go into an architecture office and you're in AutoCAD or Revit all day. Well, she's in Illustrator and InDesign all day, right? So that's her regular go-to. And I mean, it is something in dealing with Bezier curves. There is one tip that I did tell you guys, but I'm going to just reiterate it here because this is a tip I believe for life. Whenever you have to trace something that is complex in Illustrator with the Bezier curve, you draw it out rough first. So if I wanted to get a nice egg shape, I would do a rough outline of that egg shape first. So it would look something like this. It will be all angles. And then what you do is you convert these to curves by going to your direct selection tool And you can either click on one and all of them now become curves, and then you can edit those curves, or you can just use the convert corner tool. So for example, if I click on the corner here, then I can use the convert tool and turn that corner into a curve. Which, is it already a curve? No? Convert. Oh, I'm guessing that because the newer, this probably the newer Illustrator just wants you to use the little handle here. The older Illustrator didn't have these little handles here. Oh, there we go. Convert to curve, right? And now it's a curve. So then what you would do is you would go through and just convert each of these corners to curves here, right? So I just wanted to, I mean, you would have had to do this if you did the last exercise, but like this is so important. It is one of the things that will make, probably, I've seen it make or break the way how people use Illustrator, because they have to deal with these curves, and these Bezier curves are so annoying. And I always say to people, draw it rough first as angles, and then convert the angles to curves. All right. So yeah, so just a little quick recap there. Right, and we learned things that Illustrator are great for. So floor plans, elevations, those kind of things, logo designs, information graphics, characters. So when you're doing like cartoon characters, or those characters that you normally see for packaging, like when you go in the supermarket and there's like a little mascot for the biscuit or the sausage or whatever. Those characters are normally drawn up in Illustrator. They could be drawn by hand and then traced in Illustrator. And the reason they do that is that they can tweak the hand in very subtle places. My caricature that I use for my intro window here, where is it? That's this caricature window here. I mean, this was actually done in Illustrator when I was in school by a fourth-year student at the time. I could barely remember which exact year, but yeah, I've had this caricature like a super long time, and because it has vector, I can like tweak the hands and move the hands around and stuff like that. So that is why you would draw up characters in Illustrator so you can kind of tweak them. Anybody ever seen a Flash animation? Well, Flash is no more, but like when you see those cartoon characters, they're kind of moving, and you see the head kind of moving different from the body, that kind of stuff. And of course, vector portraits, we saw an example of this. Anybody remember that SUV that we looked on, that Benz SUV, where
Yes,
one
sir.
looked very real and right. So that is an example of vector portraits, and there are artists out there that paint in vector, meaning they don't paint with like pixels or with a physical paintbrush. They actually draw lines and gradients and fills and strokes, and they create these awesome works like that image of that vehicle that I showed you, right? So yeah, so that is some of the uses of the line work. Now for today's exercise, we're actually going to be focusing in on using it to do floor plans, right? And elevations, which is going to be super important for you guys going forward, right? Right. But before we look on that, today we're going to tackle another exercise, right? And this exercise is specifically set to be a little after you did the topic, to make sure the topic sinks in, right? So we did the topic on image size and we kind of moved on, and now we're going to revisit it to see how much you guys remembered, right? So I present to you the next exercise, what we're going to tackle. And that exercise will be this exercise, right? So Let me try and fit it on the sheet. Now, usually, I've stopped doing this exercise in class because we already run through how to calculate image size already, right? We have already done it already in class. So I'm not going to do this exercise in class, right? So usually we do a class exercise in class and then you participate and then that's how you get your participation grade. We're going to do this one a little different because of the importance of this, of knowing this information. I'm going to walk you through it now. And then next class, we are going to go through it in detail, right? I wonder if we can fit it in for today's class. Well, let's see. Maybe not, because our exercise today is going to be a little bit involved. So we might have to put that for next class. But nevertheless, let us go through it. So you are a CSA student. Oh, by the way, guys, you can log on to the mirror board if you want and view this directly. You don't necessarily have to look at my my shared screen. All right. So actually, let's see if we can get through this in class because I really want you to know this information. You are a CSA student preparing for your final critique presentation. Oh, wait a minute. You guys had your presentation last week in studio, right? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So let me get 3 volunteers. How did it go? 3 volunteers. How did your presentation go? I think you did what? Tectonics?
Sir, it was okay.
Okay, it was okay. All right. Anybody else? Even if it went good or bad, it doesn't affect your grade in this module. So another volunteer, how did it go?
It's kind of boring to me, the whole thing.
Well, hold on a minute. Isn't there like 40 something students, right? In second year? So
Yes, sir.
right. And did they run the crits concurrently or was it like sequentially, one after the other? So everybody had to wait till everybody done? Was it that way?
Yes, sir. So they split the entire class in 2 groups and then each person present at a time.
Oh, okay. All right. Whew. Well, all right. At least that's kind of good. Because if you had to wait for everybody, whew, you'd probably be there till 8 o'clock. Yeah, I mean,
But sir, one group went slower than the next one. That was the main thing.
yeah. I know. And how crits going on? If the first person always takes a little longer, and the first person gets the sharp end of the sword. You know what I mean? But then by the time it reaches the last person, the sword done dull up already. So right? So the illusion is it would appear that the person who presents first get the most, let's just say, feedback, right? But the secret is that person gets the most feedback. You get me? What happened is that when you present last, and take it from me because as you guys have been through CSA, right? And I was like, I don't want to go up on the chopping block first, when the sword is sharp. But the truth is that when fatigue kicks in and it's late in the afternoon and you've seen like, I don't know, 20 odd people work. So the next person presents, most of the comments from the first persons that presented goes for the other person. So they don't tend to repeat them. And then when you go up and present, what happens is that you might get 2 comments instead of 10, which you might think is a good thing because, oh, that means that my thing never too bad because they only told me about my missing north arrow and my room wasn't labeled or whatever, right? But the truth is that there is lots more stuff that was potentially an issue with your drawing, but you didn't really get to get the feedback. So the thing about it is that when you go to now hand in your portfolio, then this is when it's not a critique now, but a bunch of lecturers sit down with all the work and they go through each one of the work and they realize even though you got 2 feedback comments, there were 20 things wrong with your drawing. You get what I'm saying? So you really lose if you don't get feedback. If you're not getting, let me put it in another layman's term, if you're not getting cut by the sword, right? Then you're really losing. Like, you want to be upfront, stick out your chest, and get those feedbacks. I'm telling you. It's only, and I can tell you now, it's only when you leave school, right, and you're out in the work world, do you realize how valuable feedback is. Most people, at least, not all, but most people. Because in the real world, you have to pay people for that feedback, you know. Like, you know, if I'm working on an architectural project and it is, you know, we're trying to decide, you know, where to put the green area in this project. I mean, putting it in the wrong place means massive ramifications. Have you guys ever gone into an apartment that or a building and you just say, what was this person thinking when they did this door? I went into a house one time and the passageway was about 6 feet wide. Right? This is the passageway that takes you, you know, like a traditional house that takes you from the front door to the back of the house. And it was like 6 feet wide. And I'm like, why is the passageway 6 feet wide? They you know, they would have better given the space of the passageway to like a room or a bathroom or something, but don't waste the space in the passageway. The point I'm trying to get is that maybe if that person had seek some kind of feedback or counsel, right? Maybe somebody else would have picked up and say, hey, why is this passageway so wide? So as it goes back to what I'm saying, you want that feedback, even though there's like an ego thing, like, you know, boy, I don't want to get tear up in front of the lecturers. I don't want them to like, you know, cuss me out and say, you know, this is a horrible design or whatever. But the truth is that it better you get the feedback than you hand in your work and then you end up failing studio because nobody never tell you that, you know, your spaces weren't resolved properly and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that's enough of my preaching. That's just what I wanted to bring out to you guys, right? And so I'm hoping that for your next design studio crit, everybody's fighting to go first, right? Whenever a lecturer say, okay, these are the things that we notice, you know, you should say, is there anything else? Like, you should be pulling information out of them. Don't just say, oh, well, I guess my drawing is perfect. Because that would be an illusion. Try and pull out some information out of them. All right, guys? Okay. Enough with the preaching. Back to DDM. So anyway, you are a CSA student preparing your critique for presentation. You design a sheet layout with 3 frames that will contain 3 items. A rendered picture from Lumion, right? I'm hoping everybody kind of remembers Lumion. Everybody knows what Lumion is, right? I'm hoping. Anybody that doesn't recognize the word Lumion or the program, even if you've never used it before? I guess silence means that everybody has heard of it. So, right. A photograph taken with a camera and a plan created in AutoCAD. You plan to print your work on a 24 by 36 sheet and present on a presentation board about 1.5 meters away from your audience, right? Typical studio presentation. Using lessons learned from your lecture classes on image size, determine the following. First, what is the estimated real-world print height and width of the photo that can be produced from your camera based on the distance viewed, right? I'm sure you guys can work that out. Next one. which frame should you position the photo from your camera? So what do I mean by that? Well, this is the design of your sheet, right? So you plan to put your plan here. And you want to decide, should I put my photo or my rendered picture in this slot? Or should I put it in this slot, which is 11 by 10? How will you know, right? This is the layout design that you have designed for your sheet, right? And you're trying to determine where do I put what. But you took a picture with your camera and you have a rendered image of your project. Now, you don't want to put a photograph in a slot that is too big and then it looks blurry because the photograph isn't high enough resolution, right? And the same thing for the rendered images. So you are going to choose where do you put the rendered image and where do you put the photograph, all right? So that is what that is saying. Anybody, does everybody understand this part of the question? Are there any questions about that?
No questions.
All right, so you want to position the photo in the largest possible frame where it will not be blurry, based on the resolution of pictures your phone can produce. All right. Okay, after positioning your photo, the alternate slot will be used for your rendering. What resolution should you render the image generated from Lumion? Choose your answer from the image standard list. What is the image standard list? Well, when you use a rendering program, it's going to say, the rendering program is going to ask you, oh, do you want to render at WXGA? Do you want to render at full HD, UHD 1, 4K? Those are the options presented to you in a software. I mean, they may tell you the actual resolution, but I want from you, which one of the rendering standards would you choose, right? If you were just presented with the rendering standard like full HD, 2K, UHD, which one would you pick? All right, so that is going to be, you're going to tell me, you're going to choose your answer from the image standard list that I just showed you a while ago, right? Remember, we went through the image standard list a couple classes ago. I'm hoping that everybody remember, all right? All right. Okay. What file format should the AutoCAD plan drawing be saved in to be placed on the presentation board, right? Should I save it as a JPEG, a GIF, a PNG, a TIFF, RAW, PSD, PDF, EPS, AI, or SVG? What should I save the file format in? Because when you go into AutoCAD and you go to File and you go to Export, you get all of these options. So which one should I save? All right. So these are the 4 questions that I want you guys to answer. And is this activity 2 this year? I think this is activity 3. How much? This will be the 3rd activity, right? Am I right? Yeah, don't worry about it. I will check it. I will check it. All right. Now, everything you need to know is on this board that's here, right? So these are the questions. This is that presentation board I was talking about. Here is where you would put your floor plan. So the question is, okay, I did my floor plan in AutoCAD. What file format do I use? All right. Now these 2 slots here and here, you're trying to determine, where do I put the image? And then what resolution do I render for my rendering, right? So now scroll down here. You have a phone, and let's just say that the phone, oops. The phone is a Samsung Galaxy X8. Oh, geez, I know that's an old phone. All right. So, but just it's all right. Just for the purpose of this exercise, right? So when you look at the specs of the Galaxy S8, it says that it has a 8.2 megapixel camera. It takes images in UHD 1. It has a f-stop of 1.7. And it has a 24 millimeter wide lens, right? So I want to ask you guys, does anybody, well, you should know what this means already, right? Let me see if, I don't know, Odin can tell me what resolution is this? If the Galaxy S8 says that it gives you images as UHD 1, then Odin, tell me, what resolution is that? Are you able to jump on the mirror board and tell me? Are you there, Odin? No? Nobody? Nope, nope, nope. Okay, who can tell me first? Who can tell me what resolution is that? Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun,
Sir,
dun.
3840 by 2160.
All right, there you go. So, and this is how you, so when you're answering the question, you're going to pick the appropriate resolution, right? All right. Now, this one might be new, f-stop. Is there anybody that knows what's a f-stop? Anybody into photography? No? Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, we're going to touch a little bit of photography when I see you again at the exit gate. That is in Advanced Computing 2. That's in 4th year. We're going to touch a little bit about photography. But just for right now, it simply determines how much light your camera is able to receive, right? So when you point your camera outside and it can pull light into the camera sensor, the more it can receive light is the greater it will be in low light situations, right? So you can just think of f-stop that way, right? So a f-stop of 1.7 would have better low light performance. So if you took an image of a nighttime versus a camera that can go to 2.2, so the higher that number is, the worse it is, right? The lesser that number is, it just means that your aperture or your camera is able to take in more light to make your images brighter, especially in darker scenarios, right? Anyway, but that doesn't affect our formula. I'm just giving you the specs of the phone that you're going to use to take the photograph. And I purposely use this low-end phone because not everybody have what's the latest phone now? Like S23, 24? Anybody? Come on, guys. You guys are more updated than me. What's the latest Galaxy phone?
20 old. Last one, remember.
Okay, cool, right. So not everybody have the latest one. So I'm using a real outdated phone here. But when you snap a picture of something to print and pin up for your studio presentation, is that good enough? Right? Can I use a Banger's phone and take pictures from my Banger's phone don't have camera. Does it? Anybody? They don't, right?
Some do nowadays, sir.
Ah, well, there you go. Can I use a Banger phone and take a picture for my presentation? I honestly don't know that. Besides, there are many different Bangers phones nowadays. Anyway, the last specs of this is telling me that it's a 24 millimeter wide angle lens, right? So again, if you're into photography, you know about lenses. Basically, what we're saying is that this is a 24 millimeter lens. and this is a 50 millimeter lens. So the higher the lens number, it means the closer things will be, and the lower the number, it means the more zoomed out things will be. So for example, has anybody ever tried to take a photograph of their bathroom, right? Usually a bathroom is pretty small, right? And when you try to like angle yourself to like take a picture of the bathroom, it's so small because you know you're not far enough. So you would need a much lower focal length so that you can see more, right? So that is exactly what is happening here, right? So this doesn't matter for our purposes, of course, for this exercise, but I just want to put it out there so that you know, literally. I mean, some of us are actually purchasing phones, and high possibility that when you guys go on a site for your design studio, that very same phone is going to take photographs that you're going to use in your design studio project. So this is just some background information that I believe you should know at this stage, very basic, right? Our eyeballs basically operates at like a 50 milliliter lens, right? So the point of view that we can see from our natural eyeballs equates to a 50 millimeter lens. If I go lower than that, then that would mean that my cone of view is wider. So if I go in a bathroom, a small space, I can see much more. If my cone of view is a higher number, then that means that it becomes much smaller, right? So I don't know if you guys ever see, like when you're at a football match and you see these guys with these giant lens, right? And they can zoom right into like the freckles of the player's face, right? And get that facial expression. Well, those lenses are going to higher numbers. They're going to like 300 millimeters and 800 millimeters. We can like, are those National Geographic lens that zooms right into the lizard's eyeballs and stuff like that, right? So they are using lenses that are much higher in focal length, right? So just so you know, so your cell phone averagely hovers, usually is less than 50. And nowadays, cell phone come with different lens, right? Anybody have like an iPhone 12? When did they start making double lens on iPhone? I think it's maybe 11 or so. And of course, now the max version of them has 3 lens, right? And these 3 lens normally is set up to give you different scenarios. So I think one of them is probably like 70, another one is maybe like 10, 18, or maybe another one is like it's less than 10, by the way, right? So you're able to like literally go in your bathroom and have a picture of all walls in your bathroom because the lens can zoom out far enough, right? So that is what it is. And usually 18 millimeters and lower is for architecture and landscape. So that's an important thing to look on if you're in the market, like your phone mash up and you need to get a phone, but you know that you're going to use it in your school. If look through the specs of your phone, go to like GSM Arena or one of those sites, try and find to see if it has the equivalent of 18 millimeter. Because that would be great for architecture. The higher out you go, you're going more sports and wildlife and that kind of stuff, and that's not the stuff that we're in. Anyway, now on the other side of things, so this is the camera that you have for the purposes of this exercise. Now you're also using Lumion to render, and when you go in Lumion, you're going to basically pick what resolution should you render at. Now, you don't know what resolution yet because you have 2 slots to pick from. Either you're going to pick from frame A or you're going to pick from frame B, right? So which one of these slots are best for your phone camera? You want to work that out first because you can't change the resolution on your phone. Remember we spoke about this class before last, right? Week before last. The only way to change the resolution your phone can produce is to what? Who can tell me? Anybody? If you have a banger's phone and it does not cutting it with pictures, how can you take better quality pictures? Anybody? What was that, Dominic?
We can get good pictures and just get our next one.
Exactly. You just have to buy a better phone, right? But when you're using a rendering program like Lumion, you can pick virtually any resolution you want to render at. You know, you just have to wait. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah, waiting is free, technically. But buying a new phone because the phone is not good enough, that costs real tangible money, right? So the phone that we have working with is going to be this Samsung S8. And we want to decide when we take the photograph with the S8, should we put it in this part of the presentation board that is 20 by 14? Or should we put in this part of the presentation board, which is 11 by 10? All right. All right, so that is pretty much the exercise that we are going to do. Yeah. Now, some of these are links, by the way, guys, so you can actually click on it to get more information about these links. All right. And right. So I'm hoping this can help us to work this out. And I placed this thing here for you guys as a tip to help you guys out, right? I don't see much people on the mirror board, so I'm going to just show you here. Remember, this is how we work out the formula. And this is this handy table here, super useful, guys, is the average viewing distance based on the DPI. So for example, if I'm going to be 20 meters away, then I can use a DPI of 9 and I'll be fine. All right, you can translate that to feet if you're a feet person, but the standard is meters, right? So if I'm 800 inches away, in other words, now if I am 1 meter away or 40 inches away, then this is the DPI that I should use. So this handy table is very good for telling us what DPI value we should use in our formula, right? Okay, now I am not going to remind you how to work this out because I'm hoping that you will remember what we discussed. I think I left all of my notes here, right? So this was that class where we explained that whole thing and we went through and we did our calculations and everything. So I think you have enough information on the mirror board to work this out. This is going to be a class activity, so it's going to be graded as you know, right? All right, so that is what I kind of wanted to go through with you guys, okay? All right. Is there any questions based on this activity, guys? Any questions?
When is it due?
It's going to be due in the next class. You know, by right, I should make it be due this class. I'm still thinking about that.
That's fine, sir. Those who can do it today can do it today, and those who aren't able to can do it before next class.
No. The only reason I'm more leaning towards doing it next class is because usually when we work it out in class, it takes a little longer and then that cuts down our exercise time. So I want to get through the exercise for today. And usually I want to give you guys like a little 5-minute break between the lecturing that we're talking about and when we start the exercise. All right. Right. So let's do it next. Let's do the working out next class. So I will follow up on you to find out how you guys did. And we will see if any of you learned stuff, right? Okay. All right. All right. Okay, so I also wanted to show you let me just check here. Let me see what kind of time our exercise is going to be for today. Give me 1 sec. All right, guys. All right, so what we're going to do is I want to at least help you guys in. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is, but I want to put you on the right path to working this out. Okay? Okay, guys. If we need to know what is the real world print height and print width for the work that we want to pin up. Remember, we have a phone. Our phone is the Galaxy S8. The Galaxy S8 produces a resolution of UHD-1, right? That is what, when you look on the specs of the phone, that is what it tells you, right? So what you want to know is, when I snap a picture with my Samsung S8 to be placed on my pinup board, what is the maximum real world size that I can stretch that image to? All right, because remember, you don't know. If I just snap a picture, drop it on an artboard, send it, pay my $1,000 to print, how do you know if that image is sharp enough? It will always seem sharp on your computer screen because you can zoom in or zoom out. It will always seem sharp on your phone screen. You can zoom in and zoom out. But when you pin it up there, right, there is no zooming in and out. You can go closer or further away. but you want to know, okay, when I am 1.5 meters away, is that image that I took with my S8 going to be sharp enough so it doesn't look like a blurry mess? So let me throw out some starter questions. I think it would be most fitting if I ask Chanel, who is so excited about DDM class, right? What is the first step that I would need to do to go about knowing this, right? The first question says, what is the real world height and width that this phone can take?
I guess you just plug it into the formula.
Right.
What is
So
it back?
you need to know the resolution, right? So what is the resolution of the phone? I think I asked this question earlier. So, where's my pen? Okay, I have to go around. Right. What I have here, this is my very old school bamboo tablet. This has been around from, what year did this come out? It doesn't say, but this was from CSA days, guys. I mean, this is how long this tablet has been around, right? Still one of my favorite tablets to date, right? Used to got it in like 4th year of CSA, right? And it's still around, right? So Bamboo is one of the better brands in tablets. And if you don't have like an iPhone with a Apple Pen and all that stuff, the traditional tablet, you plug it in like a mouse and you use it like a mouse, right? Anyway. Off, touch on. There we go. Right. So where are we now? Right. So we wanted to know the resolution of this phone. So I'm going to remember, I'm not giving away the answer, guys. I'm just pointing you in the right direction so that you guys can get this question correct. All right. I'm just being like a compass, just pointing you in the right direction. All right, good. So the UHD one, right? That's what resolution is UHD one again? Remind me. Chanel, you were just about to tell me.
I don't remember, sir.
Are you on the mirror board?
No.
I believe Andrew, you were just about to tell me.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 3,840 by 2160.
3,840 by 2160. Right. So this is UH1. I think I write better with using the mouse than using my hands. That's not good. All right, cool. Sorry. Okay, so now there we go. All right. So what we want to know is Come on. 3840. Oh, I know. I gotta change this to where are you? I gotta change this to trackpad. Yeah. All right. Yeah, much better. All right. So 3840 on in real world. So 3840 1.5 meters away. What does that equate to? Right? And that is the what width. Then 2160 at the same 1.5 meters away. What does, and that would be my height. All right, so all I need to do is throw in my formula, right? So, oops. Let's see. My formula says I need to put my resolution over my DPI, and that will give me my answer. So what does that translate to for my width? My resolution is, what is it again? It's 3840. It's 3840. And my DPI, what DPI value am I going to use? Who can tell me? Shanil, you owe me an answer, you know. Actually, you gave me half. Let me go to somebody else. How about Shanique? What DPI value should I use for this to work out what my real world width is with my Samsung S8? Let me give you a hand. Are you there, Shanil? I mean, Shanique? Hello? No? No? Okay. Who else is here? What about McCoy? McCoy, you here? Man, where is everybody? Is everybody sleeping? Who is here? Who can tell me my real...
No, sir.
What is the DPI? What DPI value should I use if I am 1.5 meters away from the artwork?
120%.
Aha, 120. No problem. Thank you for that answer. Where are we here? All right, great. And that's going to be divided by 120. And that will give me my real world print width. And to get my real world print height, I just need to do the same thing. I need to do this is my width with resolution. So I need to do my height resolution and divide that by the same DPI, which would be the 2160 divided by 120. And that will give me my height. And then I will know what my real world height and real width is. Now, don't tell me the answer, because I've pretty much like given you most of the answers already, or the direction to the answer, right? Now, let me ask you guys a question. Do you remember the rule that we said whenever we work out what the real world print height is? How much are we allowed to stretch it? So for example, if we work out the real world print height of this S8 Samsung, and it says that, well, we can only print 8.5 by 11. And you say, boy, but I really had a bigger sheet. I really wish I could print it bigger, and I don't have enough money to buy a new phone just to take a higher resolution picture. What did we say is the maximum that we can stretch an image even if we work out the formula and it tells us that this is the largest it should be. Anybody remember?
Sorry, it's
Double, sir.
a half more, 0.5 more.
Exactly. So even if you work this out and it said, look, this image should be 8.5 by 11, technically you can stretch it a half more, because remember, you know, the person who is looking at the artwork, they're moving around, they're pushing their head forward and back, so they're not like fixed like a robot. So there is some wiggle room in that. So that's why we say, okay, you can scale it up by a half. But if you scale it up by 2 times, 3 times, whoa, it is going to be a blurry image. Like, you're going to see the big blur. Have you guys ever seen a blurry billboard yet? Nobody? Anybody ever see a blurry billboard?
Not that I remember, sir.
Nobody never drive past. You know, the worst billboards that you can see is any government billboard, even though they have started to do better. But if you ever drive and you see any of those billboards that say like Portmore Mayor welcomes you, or Spanish Town Mayor welcomes you, or things like that, you know, they always use these blurry images. Like I said, oh man, that's really horrible. I mean, to print
Sir,
one
difference is
billboard,
we never look on it like that still. Never like pre it like that, to be honest.
you never print like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, and that's you know, we want to operate at a high quality, a high visual production quality, right? So, you know, some of them might say, sure, people them don't need to see no sharp, pretty image. You know, but I tend to disagree. If you're going to put things out there in the public, if you guys are going to do artwork, if you guys are going to do architecture, anything, put out the best quality out there, right? So sometimes I see these blurry billboard images, and I mean, you can kind of make out the person, but obviously even at that far distance, the image was blurry. It's like somebody just took a camera phone to take somebody picture and then paid not less than $300,000, because you're talking anywhere from $150,000 to $300,000 to print a billboard. So it's not like it's cheap. So the little $1,000 that we're paying to print on a 24 by 36, if we're printing a 20-foot by 15-foot billboard, it's going to be upwards of $200,000. And I always say, boy, look at the size of that, you know, and it's a blurry image. Like, if I'm going to spend so much money, it better be a perfect image, right? You know, unless you have money to burn, right? Anyway, the point is that what I'm getting at is that you can stretch an image up to a half more, and that's it. I swear, those pictures that they put up, they stretch it like about 5 times. All right, moving away from that. Now, the next part of the question, let me see here. All right. Why do you keep switching things? Which one's right click?
Sir, if we go over, we got 120 for the DPI.
The 120 for the DPI?
Yes, sir.
This is a handy chart that tells you when you are X distance away, what is the recommended DPI value, right? So this is a handy chart. But remember, we kind of made it up last 2 weeks ago when we met, you know. But this is like an official chart. Like, you can, you know, this is like a nice little guide that you guys should always have, because you don't need to always be using 300 DPI to do your calculations. Remember, we spoke about that. That is only when you're doing like a book and you're literally up close to your content. Especially in architecture, most of your content is experienced like at least 3, 4, 5, 10 foot away. You're printing on big sheets. So use this chart to determine when you're working out your formula. So when you use this chart, you will find out what is the real world height and width that a Samsung S8 phone can give you if you're doing it for your studio presentation sheet, which would mean you're 1.5 meters away from the sheet on average, right? Now, the next part of the question say, which frame should you position the photo from your camera, right? So the photo that you take with the S8, after you get the real world height, you are going to determine, oh, should I put it in this slot that is going to be work out to be 14 by 20? Or should I put it in this slot that's going to work out to be 8 by 10? When you work out the formula, it will tell you. It will tell you what is the maximum size or what is the size that gives you the best quality, right? All right, good. So I'm not going to tell you guys the answer for that, right? Let's see. However, this one now, when you're going to choose, when you're going to go in Lumion and you say, when you're in Lumion and, you know, is it best to choose QHD, FHD, QHD? Which one of these HD things should I pick? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to work the formula the other way. You're going to say, okay, given that, let's say that I decide to put it in frame B. I'm not saying that's the answer, but that's that random. Then you know that you're going to fit an image that needs to be 11 inches in height, 10 inches in width, and you're going to be 1.5 meters away. So what resolution should I render at, right? So you're going to do some basic math, right? Because remember that it's writing? No, I gotta choose writing. Why doesn't this detect my pen? Anyway, so you're going to do some basic math, which you already know that the print height, for example, divided by the DPI gives you, I'm just put real world, give you the real world height, right? So you just do a little bit of little math and cross multiply, because in this case you want to know what the height is. This is what you want to know. You already know what the real world height is, you already know what the DPI is, and you want to know what is the resolution height, right? So you know therefore that DPI multiply, because you're going to do cross multiply, times the real world height is going to give you the resolution height. Dropping off the board. All right, so you do some cross multiply. Then when you get the resolution height and the resolution width, you just look for the closest standard that matches that height and width, whether it's FHD, UHD, blah, blah, blah. Which one matches it the close, and that's the one you pick in Lumion to render your image, right? So, all right, guys. I think I've given away enough. I think you have enough to get this question correct. Is there anything else that you guys would like to ask me related to this exercise? No? All right, going once, going twice, and we are moving on. All right, no problem. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break, a real quick break. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, get some water, get some air. Then we're going to come back and tackle today's exercise. All right, guys. So take a break, 5-minute break, and I'll see you back in 5 minutes. Okay, guys, we're back. Is everyone here? Is everyone hopefully a little bit more refreshed?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. So we're gonna dive into the exercise for today. It's gonna be Illustrator. We have a bit of exercise files to get to. Oh, you might also need to refresh your website. Give me 1 second. Let me update that on my end. So design media. Oh, actually, yeah, it is already updated. I see. Yeah, okay, good. Right. So, on to exercise 3. Okay, everyone, welcome to exercise 4. And if we head on over to the website.
Sir, the audio and the recording is kind of low.
Oh. Mm. Why? We can see here that exercise 4 is about architectural presentations using Illustrator, right? So we're going to look on how do we do architectural presentations using Illustrator, right? And if you look at the examples on the handout, you can see where this is a standard architectural drawing. And it
No. Sir.
Right. Is it? I was just about to ask. So you're saying that is super low for you? Hold on. Is it low for anybody else?
Very low.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Oh.
sir.
Wasn't that low before? Oh. Always the simplest answers to the solution. Always. It's always a simple button. Okay, everyone, welcome to exercise 4. Is that still low?
No, sir.
No, sir, much better.
Oh, sorry, good now.
Cool. Yeah, man. I see what happened. Probably too loud now. Anyway, yeah. Right. So it's exercise 4, not exercise 3. So we have one more exercise left, and then we can actually start the course, right? Is there like anybody in the house that plays video games? You know those video games, and you pop it in a whatever system, and then you start to play, and you play for a good little 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, you just see the credits, the name roll to say, oh, so I just start, right? So, so after exercise 5, then we can start the module, right? The real deal. We're still in the tutorial phase, all right? Yep.
Yeah,
And
trick
we're heading
cool,
on
man.
over to the website and we look under exercise 4. We can see here that exercise 4 is about architectural presentations using Illustrator, right? So we're going to look on how do we do architectural presentations using Illustrator, right? And if you look at the examples on the handout, you can see where this is a standard architectural drawing and it perhaps has a black background because perhaps most times we do architectural drawings, they are in AutoCAD and the background is usually black. So that's what this is representing here. And we want to look how to convert this into this. So if you look at your exercise files that we have available, you will see a bunch of images, mostly PDFs, of all kinds of architectural assets. Now what you'll be looking for, you're going to be needing a DWG file, right? And if I open this DWG file here, you will see that this is what the file looks like in AutoCAD. And I can, in the AutoCAD application, you might realize that there are tools that are similar to Illustrator. However, they're more geared towards architects and engineers. But notice that, like Illustrator, I can clearly see these lines here. I can select a line, I can move it around, you know, but notice how there is no precision because there is no measurements and dimensions. And these are things that we're all familiar with architectural drawings. So the idea is we want to not show the drawing as construction drawings, but rather to use this same method used to create construction drawings as working drawings. So what you'll notice is when you save an AutoCAD file, it saves as a DWG file. And that DWG file is able to be read in Illustrator. All right, so therefore we're going to open Illustrator now, and we're going to go to open, and we're going to browse for the location of this DWG file that we see here. Here we go. And I'm going to open this like that. Now your Illustrator should bring up this option here to read the DWG file, and you're going to leave it on the default, which should be scale to fit artboard. We're going to choose OK. Ignore any messages and just choose OK to open. Now once the file is open, this is what you should have. Now notice when you hover over these lines, the same lines that you noticed coming from AutoCAD
Sorry, sir.
is now in Illustrator. Now you might, you might notice that these lines. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, yes, sir. It said weight name the weight name there should be scale the line weights too. Awesome.
Right. When you open the DWG in Illustrator,
Yeah.
right? And it's you mean that message that comes up where it says should you scale to fit artboard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, can scale to fit artboard.
Okay. That are the only thing with that tick. You know, tick scale line weights as well.
You don't have to, and besides, whatever you tick for that is we're going to end up overriding it anyway. So you can just leave everything else as default.
Okay. So.
Right. The line weights will look kind of off, like how you see it here, you know? All right.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that wasn't no more questions. All right, cool. Are a bit thick though, and that's just because the way how Illustrator has interpreted the line weight, right? Okay, now Also notice the elevations and notice how all of these are individual lines. Right? And this is because Illustrator is able to read the vector information from that DWG file. Okay, so now what we're going to do before we do anything else is we need to fix these line weights. Now, if you remember from the previous class, we do have the stroke panel which allows us to manipulate individual lines. Now the first thing we want to do is we want to change all these lines to black. So we're going to select everything. And notice when we select all the lines in our drawing, if we take a look at what this is saying here, it is not able to tell us what stroke and what fill we have selected, right? Notice that there. However, if I selected, let's zoom in here, if I selected one line, like maybe this cyan line here, it's able to tell me that I have a cyan line selected. However, if I select multiple lines, it's going to give me a question mark, and that is because it has multiple lines selected and it's not able to display multiple lines here. Now, the first thing we're going to do before we change all these lines to one color is we need to get ourselves organized. Now, if you look on your layers tab, notice that you have some pre-made layers. And funny thing, these layers were actually interpreted from the AutoCAD application. If I go over to AutoCAD application and I look on my layers, notice that these layers here, the short for annotate, appliances, details, dimensions, and now these layers are actually now interpreted with Illustrator. So that this tells us that Illustrator is able to read DWG files and to translate the information from it into Illustrator. Now, the first thing we want to do is get a little bit more organized with our text. And notice that the text has also been interpreted. We can use the text tool and be able to highlight this text, and we can modify it. However, what we want to do is to put all text objects on one layer. Notice we don't have a layer for text objects here. Now, in order to do that, we could manually select each object here and then create a new layer to put them on. And to do that, well, let's do one first. So I'm going to select this balcony thing here, and I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this new layer text. Now, of course, if I wanted to put this on this layer, I could search for it here in this list and drag it to that new layer, but that might be a little bit ergonomically difficult. So what I suggest you do is to click on the word on the layer, right click on the object that you want to go to that layer, and then you're going to go to arrange and send to current layer. And the current layer you have selected is text. So when you do that, it will go over to that layer. And surely enough, if I turn it on and off, you will see that is now there. Now we have many other text to select here, but rather than individually selecting them, we also have text over here. Rather than individually selecting them, what I want you to do is to go to select object and then say all text objects. So that's under select object, and then you go to all text objects. And once you do that, it's going to automatically select all text objects in the drawing. When it does that, we can now put everything over to the text layer here. Now, funny thing, an important thing to notice, when I right click and I say, okay, now I want to go to arrange and send to current layer, you might notice send to current layer is currently grayed out, and you might be wondering why is that? Now the reason for that is that there is one text object that is already on the text layer. So, you know, Illustrator is saying that, well, you can't send something on a layer to itself. So what you want to do is to deselect this singular text that we already had placed on the text layer. So again, when you select all the text, you want to deselect the one that we already placed on the text layer, and you do that by holding Shift and clicking on the text there. All the other text is still selected, and now when you highlight the text layer and then you right click on any one of the text, you should see now send to current layer. Now once you do that, now you'll be confident that all the text in the drawing is now on one layer. We can actually turn that off or on. So that is great. So now that we have the text organized, next we want to get organized with our line weights, right? We definitely want the lines to be in the same color, and we want all the line weights to be a reasonable width. Most of these widths are quite thick and some are thin. So what we're going to do first is we're going to select everything here, and we're going to go to stroke. So ensure that you have highlighted the stroke here. And this is a key point that I want us to know. When you notice that the stroke has the question mark now, that is telling us that we have a multitude of strokes that's currently selected. Now when you do this, you want to ensure that your text layer is off, because we don't want to be adding a stroke to our text layer. All right, so make sure that that layer is off. So when you select everything on all the layers, when you select all the objects on your artboard, you're going to now go to color, and then what you're going to do is recolor all the strokes with black, and you can see that the black button that's right here. Now you need to ensure that you have the stroke that's currently activated on top, right? Because you're applying black to all strokes. Now once you do that, there you go, and you deselect, now everything will currently be black. All right, so if I look around here, you will see that all these drawings are black. Now of course we have an issue. The line weight is still a major issue. So what we want to do is make all the line weight one singular line weight, and we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to select all the line work here, and this time we're going to head over to our stroke panel, and in our stroke panel we can adjust the line weight right there. So we want to put our line weight to perhaps, let's try 0.25. Right, and that is looking a little bit more reasonable perhaps. As a matter of fact, that may be a bit too thick, so let's select everything and let's go to 0.2. All right, let's try 0.5. There we go. Yeah, definitely too thick. So we want to use a stroke of 0.15. Now this is a bit more workable. You can see that we can see all the window frames here. We can pick up all of these details here. And we do have some unwanted lines like this line here that has now reared its ugly head. Now before we go into cleaning up those lines, we need to now turn on our text layer. So we're going to make sure that our text layer is on. And you can see that our text layer still has the color, that is the blue applied to it. So let us also change that to black. So to do that, we're going to select the little round symbol here, and that will select all text. Now for text, we don't want to change the stroke. Instead, we want to change the fill color of the text, right? So you're going to ensure that you need to ensure that your stroke, your fill is highlighted here. And notice you also get a question mark here because it's selecting multiple different fills. So we're going to change all of those fills to one color again. So we're going to select the black color here, or here, anyone. All right, great. So now if we should look around on our text layer, we'll see that it is now black. All right, so we are getting somewhere. So what we want to do now is kind of position this in place. So we want to have two artboards. One artboard will be for the elevation and another artboard will be for the plan. So to do that, we're going to go to the artboard tool that's located right here. And once we go into artboard mode, notice that the artboard now becomes highlighted. We can see the name of the artboard for those who have, I think it's 2018 and up. And we can also see the name of the artboard up here. We can also see the size of the artboard, right? And if you remember how Illustrator works, whatever we have selected, we're getting the properties for it on our bar up top. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to create another artboard. So we want to click the plus button that's right here, and you will see another artboard will be created. Now when that artboard is created, what we want to do is select our plan and we want to move this over. Now when you're moving Illustrator content, you want to grab the actual line. If you try to grab in the middle, you're not going to be pulling anything. You have to hold on to an actual line content because this drawing has no fill. So we're going to grab that and we're going to put it roughly in the center of the page. And we're going to do the same thing for the elevation. We're going to put it roughly in the center of the page here. Then we're going to use our artboard tool again. And what we want to do is we want to name our artboard. So we want to name this artboard elevation. And we want to name this artboard or plan, floor plan. Great. So now we are a bit more organized in how we're going to do our coloring. Now the first thing we want to do is try to get our elevations to look a bit more vibrant. So what we're going to do now is to start to clean up the elevations, right? So we're gonna, so for example, this line that's here, we're gonna remove that line there. And of course we can use our direct selection tool, which allows us to select individual lines. There we go. So we're going to remove that, and we basically want to clean up the drawing, so we want to remove that line there, this one, and these are just hidden lines that came over as a result of importing a DWG file. All right, great. All right, so once our line work is all cleaned up, At this point, it would be a good idea to save your work. So I'm going to save my work as exercise 4. And I'm going to make sure I'm saving it as an Illustrator file. And Illustrator will usually give this option. And when it gives this option, what it is saying is, well, you just choose your version of Illustrator. And this option here, create a PDF compatible file, this is basically enabling the option for the Illustrator file to be opened directly in a PDF application. So we're going to make sure those two options are on, and we're going to choose OK. All right, now Illustrator 2020 has a file recovery option. I believe it saves every 5 to 10 minutes. So if you lose your work, you should be able to get it back. However, we don't want to depend on that. So we want to save as often as we can, right? All right, so now that we have this selected here, now that we have our plans a bit more organized, let us manipulate some of our line work. So we know that we want perhaps this line being the ground line to be a bit brighter, right? So we have more than one options. What we could do is select all the lines along this edge here and make it thicker. But to make life a bit easier, it would be much easier to trace on top of this line with a much thicker line representing our floor plan. Now, when you're tracing lines on top of lines in Illustrator, things get a little tricky. And I'll show you why if I select the pen tool here. And let's say I wanted to draw a line over this line here. Once I hover over this point here with the pen tool, it is going to want to add the line here and merge it with this line, and that's not what you might want to happen. So in order to be able to trace and to enhance some of our line work, we need to get a little bit organized with our layers so that we can control how we do that. So first thing we want to do is let us select our elevation. Well, let's turn off the text layer. There we go. We're going to select all of our elevation, and we're going to put that on a new layer, and we're going to call that elevation. So we're going to create a new layer, and our new layer is located here. New layer button. And when it created the new layer, we want to call this elevation drawing. Great. So now we need to highlight the layer, right click, and say move to new layer. So now we can turn the elevation on or off, depending. I think I might have made an error there. Hold on. There we go. There we go. Right. So now we can turn the layer on or off as we please. Now, one of the reasons for doing this is we actually want to lock this layer. So I'm going to lock the elevation drawing layer. And I'm going to use my pen tool now. Let's create a new layer, and I'll call it updated line work. There we go. Call it updated line work. Now this layer we want to be on top of the elevation drawing layer. And what we're going to do on this updated line work layer is to kind of fix up some of our line work so that our drawing reads a bit more nicer. So I'm going to get my pen tool, and I'm going to make sure that the elevation layer is locked. All right, that's important because when we draw on our updated line layer, we don't want it to be merging or messing with that elevation drawing layer. So I'm just gonna trace this over here, and what I'm doing is just tracing over the lines. Now Illustrator has the ability to snap to anchors, but I mean we're gonna make this line really thick, so if it doesn't 100% snap, it should be fine. There we go. Press escape. I'm going to use my selection tool so I can see that that is the line that I have drawn. And then what I'm going to do is now I'm going to make this line thicker. So I'm going to go to my stroke tool, and I'm going to perhaps make this line about 0.5, probably 0.8. Actually, let me fix up my stroke and fill here. So I want to ensure that I'm on my stroke. All right, you need to make sure that. So your stroke is highlighted. And I want to make the stroke 0.8. Maybe let's try making it 1. 1 is actually, yeah, there we go. So we have a nice, strong baseline there, as you can see. All right, I might have left off a section here, so I'm going to just use my pen tool and continue this line out there like that. There we go. All right. Okay, everyone, welcome to exercise 4. And if we head on over to the website and we look under exercise 4, we can see here that exercise 4 is about architectural presentations using Illustrator, right? So we're going to look on how do we do architectural presentations using Illustrator, right? And if you look at the examples on the handout, you can see where this is a standard architectural drawing, and it perhaps has a black background because perhaps most times we do architectural drawings, they are in AutoCAD and the background is usually black. So that's what this is representing here. And we want to look how to convert this into this. So if you look at your exercise files that we have available, you will see a bunch of images, mostly PDFs, of all kinds of architectural assets. Now what you'll be looking for, you're going to be needing a DWG file, right? And if I open this DWG file here, you will see that this is what the file looks like in AutoCAD. And I can, in the AutoCAD application, you might realize that there are tools that are similar to Illustrator. However, they're more geared towards architects and engineers. But notice that, like Illustrator, I can clearly see these lines here. I can select a line, I can move it around.
Sir,
You know, but notice how... Yeah, what's up? Hello?
seems as if your video start over or something. I don't know.
Ah, yes. I was
Sorry,
wondering. Right. Okay.
Artist, artist,
Okay,
sir.
so-
Which one? Sir, before you start over the video, sir. quick question.
No,
Is
we're not
there a
starting
means of
over.
communication? Sir, is there a way I could get to you, sir?
You mean apart from the Zoom chat? You mean
Well, sir,
outside of class or?
Sir, even the Zoom chat, because I don't have access to the Zoom chat.
Oh, McCoy, you got
Sir,
you
likewise, I don't have access to the files in the drive.
oh, so when you bring up you're talking for other exercises or this one?
Sir, all the exercises, including this, because I started this semester.
Right. So when you go, so you have been on the class website,
Yes, sir.
and okay, you register for the class site at the top where you see I register for this class button. You did that already?
Hold on, sir. Let me double check.
So for example, when you go to let me see. Let me see. So you go to digital design media, right? So this is what it looks like. This is what you would have clicked on to come to today's class, right?
Yes, sir.
And then, right. So then up here, register for class site. Do you remember doing this already?
No, sir.
All right, cool. So let's do that. And it take like a couple seconds. You let's do that. And then I'm gonna send an invite to your email, and that will invite you to the group chat for the Zoom group chat. And that is how you can get me outside of class time at any time. You just send me a message in the group chat. All right.
All right, no problem, sir. Can proceed back with class.
Yeah, man, no problem. Oh, by the way, you say you're not accessing. So when you click on the exercise, like let's say this exercise 4. There's a button here that says exercise file. So when you click on it, you don't get access to this folder.
No, sir.
It gives you an error message like it says you don't have access.
Yes, sir. That's why I'm here in class, just trying to grab what I can grab, but I'm pretty much clueless, sir, man. So I was
And then-
waiting for class to finish before I interrupt. Sir, just proceed with class. I'll start you after.
Yeah, man, yeah,
After
man, yeah, man.
class.
But I just want to know, is there anybody else that not getting access to the exercise files? Anybody? You? Who's out? Who else is out there? Odin, Rayan, Rachel. Guys?
Sure, question.
Right. I was asking, do you have access to the exercise files
Yes, sir.
for any one of the exercises? When you click on it, do you have access to it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. So, all right, McCoy. So you have a Gmail, McCoy? A Gmail account? Hmm.
Yes, sir. I'm currently adding the credential as we speak. So
I wonder why that not
registering
work.
for the
Yeah, but you should have still have access even without your register. So, all right, I will look on this after. All right, so that is the first part of this exercise, right? So by now, well, for those of you that are following along, we should have a nice clean section line, and most of the drawing should be cleaned up. Now, there is lower your hand, McCoy. Right. There is some other awesome tips with using Illustrator, especially as it relates to colored elevations and plans, right? And I want you guys to look closely on this part, especially when it comes to coloring and texturing, because Illustrator has its own method of filling in colors with line work, right? And that is where it truly shines, but it is very different from Photoshop, right? So I want us to take a look on that. All right. Now we can use this method to kind of enhance other lines, but pretty much this is good enough. All right, now what we're going to do is use a feature to color our drawing here. Now, this feature called Live Paint Bucket is a feature that's very, I would say, underappreciated in Illustrator. It's very useful for us, but yet a lot of persons perhaps forget about this tool, even advanced Illustrator users, right? So what the Live Paint tool is, it uses the ability to, it basically gives us the ability to use a paint bucket to fill certain enclosed areas, right? And to give that, if we should look at a little example over here, if I have a bunch of squares, and you can do this example here, you can try this example for yourself. Now obviously I have different squares here, and these are all different shapes. However, where they intersect, like here and here, they form new shapes. However, we are unable to easily fill in this intersected shape. And this is what the Live Paint Bucket allows us to do. Because currently Illustrator, if we should just allow these shapes to intersect, there's no way to only fill in the areas that are intersected, that are intersecting. Now the Live Paint Bucket is located as a sub-tool here under the Shape Builder tool. So if we click and hold, we should be able to hover over to Live Paint Bucket, and now we're using the Live Paint Bucket tool. Now, very carefully, how the Live Paint Bucket tool works, if you try to use the Paint Bucket tool now, it's basically not going to work. What you have to do is use your direct selection tool first. So step one, you use your direct selection, your selection tool rather. Select all of the elements that you want to be a part of the Live Paint group. Then you go to your Live Paint Bucket, and notice you get this message that says click to make a Live Paint group. Now once you click this, notice that you can now hover over these different areas, and what happens now, if I use my color picker and just pick a color, I am now able to fill in these individual areas even though there are individual shapes. So you can do this little test here to kind of get a feel of how the Live Paint group works. Essentially what it did, it created a group. So this is actually a special group here. I can move it around. However, I can still go inside the group. So to go inside this group, I can double click. And now I'm inside this group, and I'm still able to move these shapes around. And yet it will keep the colors that were assigned to the intersecting areas. And that is a major cool feature. And we can really utilize that a lot, especially in architecture, to help color our buildings. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, there is one more concept that we need to understand in order to, before we start to color our shape. Now, I want to explain a little bit about color, because yes, we can turn this into a Live Paint group and we're now able to color these elements here, but how do we know what color to use? All right, so color is a major it is a major skill. Choosing the right color is a major skill that we eventually develop in this design field. And Illustrator actually has the tools to help us be better color pickers. In other words, better designers. Now, what I'm about to show you here is actually a tip that has existed in Illustrator, I think, since its inception. And it's also a little secret that if you're trying to determine what colors go well together, Illustrator has the ability to assist you, to help you to do that. So if we as designers were faced with this problem where we're trying to decide what color should we paint this building in, if you think about it, it's the same kind of question we might ask ourselves: what color shirt should I wear with these shoes? Or what color furniture should I get? What color bedspread should I get to match this curtain? So there are many design problems that exist that is centered around color selection. And what happened, Illustrator has, I call it the dynamic trio of tools that can help us to select the correct color without even breaking a sweat. Now, to use this skill, so these three tools, or rather three panels, is the color panel. The next one is the swatches panel. And the last one is the color guide panel. So with these three panels, you can passively always select the correct color in whatever application you're using color. It could be with architecture, with fashion, with fabric, doesn't really matter. The way how these tools work, it works using the color theory, and your selections, if driven by color theory, will automatically always work. Okay, so in order to let this work, and I'll show you an example here, the first thing that you need to do is decide, let's put these three panels over here, as we're going to be using three of them to help with this. We're going to minimize the other panels here, and we're going to just attach these three panels together here. All right, there we go. So we're going to put these panels over here. Okay, so now we have our icons organized. Let's put this layer one over here. Right, now we have our icons organized. Now the first thing we need to do is, if we wanted to decide what color to paint this building and we had no idea what color we want to select, we could always start with a theme. Now to do that, you're going to choose the library icon, which is here. It is a sub icon under the swatches menu. So when we select that, this is where you select a theme. So let's say you wanted to use colors that are based in nature. Well, you could go in the nature category, and what subcategory? How about seasons? Well, what you would notice that Illustrator does, it gives you a library of these colors that would be considered under the seasons category. And right away, you have a range of colors to pick from. And within each row are colors that are pretty much made to go together. So you could just basically select one row here and color your building that color. Now, the next step that we would use, let's say that we might like one color out of this set here, but maybe we don't like the other colors in the row. Well, so I'm going to pick let's choose a kind of burnt orange color, maybe earthy burnt orange. Maybe that's too dark, maybe that one. So let's say that this is the color that I like here. Notice when I select that color, it also shows up on my swatches here. And it is also highlighted on my color guide here. And it tells us here on my color panel what range of cyan, magenta, yellow, and key black was used to create this color. So right away, I have a lot of information on this one color that I have selected. Now, because of these tools, I can now get the perfect color that I want. So the next step would be to use my color panel here, and I'm going to go into my color up my panel options, and I'm going to change it to HSB, hue, saturation, and brightness. And what this is saying, this is telling me the amount of hue, the amount of saturation, and the amount of brightness that was used to get this color here, which is a color that I selected over here, which was based on a theme that was seasons. So you can kind of see how the seasons kind of led me down this path, the seasons theme. Now, if I don't quite like this particular color, I can always tweak the saturation or the brightness to get the exact tone that I like. However, notice that I started from this tone here, and I started from this theme here, but I don't have to pick this particular color. I can use my color panel here to just slightly give me the exact feel that I wanted. So let me go, let's say that I wanted this kind of a very pastel-y kind of brown. There. Now once I have this color that I've now configured using the color panel, I can now save it to my swatches here. And how I save it? Well, all I need to do is to drag it into my swatches panel. So I just click this color and drag it here. So now I have saved the color. Now I have saved this color here. And you could repeat this process a number of times to save whatever color you might like. So now that you've selected a color that you definitely want to be in this building, how do I know what colors complement this color that I've selected here? Well, this is where the color guide comes in. Now, if you notice on the color guide, it always displays the color that you have currently selected. Then right beside it, it shows you a list of colors that go well together based on color theory. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I'm wondering, guys, did you see a graphic error a while ago? As I'm wondering, I think something on my computer changed something. Anybody? Hello? Anybody notice any errors a while ago while they were watching the demonstration? Guys?
No, sir.
Oh, you didn't see any? Okay. All right. Just making sure. Because remember that this would be the recording that you would look at if you wanted to go pause or go forward. So I just want to make sure that it is okay. All right, let's continue. If we click on this down arrow here, notice on the left side of this is the color that you've selected, and on the right are the matching colors based on the color theory. And that color theory is used to drive these selections. So let's say that you want the triad color theory here. Well, using the triad color theory, these are the colors that go well with the color that I have selected. Now I can say, oh, I really like this green, so I'm going to select it and drag it out here. I like this purple, I'm going to drag it out here. And I like this dark brown here, I'm going to drag it out here. So right away, just by configuring one color, I was able to select multiple colors that matches the one color that I've selected. And I didn't even have to necessarily memorize my color theory. Illustrator did that for me. All right, so now that I have my colors that I like, my next step would be to now use the live paint bucket to now color my elevation. Now in order to do this, first, if you remember the steps, I'm gonna select the layer, or I currently have it locked. So now that I've finished using these swatches, I can close up this window here. I don't need this window anymore. And let's maximize this window here. There we go. So if I go to my elevation drawing, I'm going to unlock that layer, select the elevation drawing, and then I'm going to use my live paint bucket tool, which is that. And remember, it is a sub tool under the shape builder tool if you don't see it. And I'm going to click once. Now remember this, once I click, it's going to say make a live paint group. I just need to click once. Now once I do that, this is now a single group. If I use my direct selection tool and click, the entire thing now acts as one group. However, now I'm able to use my live paint tool and I can now fill in the different sections here. So remember that I had used my swatches and I had selected the color that I liked. So I'm going to color my main wall this color. Now, interestingly enough, this wall here is really at an angle. So ideally, I would want this to be a darker shade to signify that this is slant. Now to do that, I can simply just use my color guide, and I just need to choose a darker tone based on this color I have selected here. There we go. Maybe that's too dark. Let me go up another notch. Actually, that is the same color. Yep, this is the next notch down. So that would be the color there. There we go. And I can start to use from my swatches some of these colors that I have selected here. So I kind of had this darker color here I'm going to use for the rim. And let's try this in, yeah, so let's try this over here in this color here, and like that. All right, great. Now in order to do the roof, let's say that I want to make the roof a kind of burgundy color, right? Now you could do the same process again, and in the swatches panel you could use your library and look for a color here that you want to use. Let's look on the earth tone. Here we go. So I could find a nice earth tone color I want to use for the roof. Maybe this kind of orange here. And once I've selected it, I can drag it and add it to my library, to my swatches there. And now I'm able to click and color the roof. Now you might notice that you have to be clicking a while, clicking a lot here. But what you can do is click and hold. And when you click and hold, it will actually do a multiple selection so that you don't have to click a lot of times. There we go. Oops, I think I have selected, so I did an undo there. There we go. And I could do the same here. So it almost acts like a brush when I click and hold. Now to make this a little nicer, what I could do is I can use my color guide tool and choose, if you can see, this is my color here. So this color matches this color. In my color guide is the center. You can see it with a little arrow there, and going this way would be going lighter and going this way would be going darker. So let's go one shade up and then I will color again. So you notice I can get like a kind of mixed shingle look there. So you realize the color guide can be used to kind of step up or step down your color selections. So you can kind of move the mouse a little quickly to give it a kind of a random feel. Now let's say that I accidentally colored my fascia board here with the same color as the roof. I mean, because I had the swatches saved, I can just go back to my swatches here, select back my brown color, I think it was that one, and voila. All right, let's continue with the roof. All right, so once you have that all done, next we perhaps need to do the windows. So we could use the same library feature. This time we could choose something like perhaps something like skies on the gradients. Maybe choose something like that, maybe. There we go. Oops, we don't want to color the frames in that color. Maybe not, so maybe a flat color would work a bit better. So let's go back to the library and we could select something under let's go nature and let's try beach. And on the beach, yep, we do have some kind of beachy blue colors. So let's try this now. And this will give us a kind of flat color, which, oops, let's undo, which may work. You know, it's going to be up to your preference to choose what color you would want here. There we go. Okay, now for the stone wall, perhaps we could, under the same beach color, we could pick some tones here, and then we could use a different tone for the backdrop. So that would kind of give a interesting mix for our stones, so that it has this kind of interesting color. You can maybe try grays or maybe even some gradients to let it look a bit diverse. There we go. Now remember, all of these lines are actually coming from AutoCAD, but we're able to repurpose them more creatively when it comes into Illustrator. So that is quite awesome. Okay, now next what we would want to do is perhaps get some entourage in this image. And if you look in your working folder, remember these images here, we actually have some vehicles in elevation. So for example, this car here, I can download it. And if I open it up, that's what it looks like. And I can copy this PNG here and I can paste it in my drawing here. Let's resize it. And you want to hold shift so you keep the ratio. Oh, actually, you're not going to get the transparent background. So let us find where it is and drag it into our scene here. Right, so now it comes in with the transparency. Rather than using the copy, just find where you downloaded it and copy it in. Oops, remember to hold shift so that it remains. And you want to get your scale correctly. I think it's about that. So as you can see, there are many other assets in this folder, including persons in elevations, trees. So for example, you could grab this tree here, as well as you can get trees from the internet. And I can drag that in. And I can resize that there and perhaps drop there. And of course, if I wanted to put it behind, I can actually create a layer called tree and place it on that layer. So that way I can choose to put it behind or in front of my drawing. So with that said, what I want you to do is to populate this drawing to now let it look a bit more architecturally rich.
What happened to you? What did you do? What happened? Did you rub something in your eyes? What happened to you? Come here. What happened to you? Come here. Come here. You put something in your eye? You rub your eye and you touch something, don't it?
No.
Huh?
No.
What happened?
Oh, it hurt my eye, and every time my eye water, my eye burns.
The chlorine hurts in your eye?
Every time my eye water.
And what I'm doing here is just creating some more content. So I'm going to have a layer called people.
Oh.
Is
And
the
I'm
other
going to
people
put
have goggles?
this person here on that layer.
That's why your eye burns you because
There
you
we
don't
go. I
have
can put this
goggles.
layer on
Talk
top.
to me.
And I can better position this layer.
Oh.
Thing is not clear.
That.
The runny belly is not good. Yes, please. Not good.
I'm using the arrow keys to
Oh.
manipulate the layer.
Here, I didn't know that it wasn't good, so don't eat the rest of it. It's alright, Colleen. It's the Swiss thing. I was just telling Nate that it's not good, so you should eat the rest of it.
God.
I don't want it to hurt your belly. Come here. Make mommy put something in your eye. Did I really got, you know, you have goggles already too? Can you wash them?
In this scenario, I would have to have I would call this people. BG for maybe background. And this layer now, I would put them behind the elevation layer so that they are pretty much behind that layer there. Now, of course, I would need to fill this in, so I would need to go back to this layer here and use my paint bucket tool, and perhaps I can even fill this with a white color. So let's get a closer color to white and maybe fill like that. To fill these balcony items here, I could maybe use a gradient, earth tone, like maybe that. No, that's a bit too heavy. So like that, so that it has a nice curved look. There we go. There we go. All right. Now you can use the transform option up here to quickly resize these. And I'm actually using, here we go. Let's see. Well, you can use the transform to position it, but you would need to, no, you wouldn't be able to use this one here. You would have to use the transform panel. There we go. If I can remember correctly, here we go. There we
Yeah,
go.
but
Right.
that's
And I'm using the
easy to
mouse
make it.
wheel. That's actually the same thing here. Actually, it was this side, right? I'm using the mouse wheel to make it smaller. So you can actually, instead of dragging to position it, you could use the transform panel and your mouse wheel to kind of get it in the right location and the right scale. Oops. I think I may have squashed it there. Let's undo that. There we go. Right. So you want to make sure that it is always locked. The width and the scale is always locked. Sometimes it does give a little trouble. There we go. Maybe one more. Now in this case, if I want to get back this exact color, I could use the pipette tool first and then use the paint bucket tool next. So I use the pipette tool first and then use the paint bucket tool. There we go. Oops.
Oh, it's gonna fall.
There we go. And that may be a bit too strong. All right, so by now, I think you're supposed to get the general idea of how we can create this elevation, right? Let's see. Come on. Right. Now, there are actually two elevations that you will need to do for this exercise, right? Well, actually, there's an elevation and a plan, right? Now, the same approach that you use for the elevation, you would do the exact same thing for the plan, right? And I'm going to show you that one as well. But I'm just gonna kind of introduce to you how that one is done. Because it's not gonna take the same amount of time as to do the elevations, because a lot of the approaches that we use are going to be the same for the plan. All right. So let us check that out. And that will be the last component that I show you guys today for your fourth exercise. All right. So let's check it out. If it will play. There you go. Plan figures in plan. So if you remember the same process, what do we do first? Well, we need to select the plan. We need to put it on a layer, so we're going to call it plan. Right? When it is, so you need to select everything here and go and select the plan layer and say send to current layer. Now what you'll notice is that you can get a little bit more organized with your plans, with your layer in here. Now that you have pretty much have everything on either the plan or elevation layer, most of these layers coming from AutoCAD are no longer in use. So you could actually delete them. And of course you don't want to delete your text layer, but you would delete all the other layers from AutoCAD. So you would just end up with the layers that you are gonna use. All right, now, okay, so now that we have the plan layer, what we're going to do is select the plan layer, and we're going to use the live paint group again and turn this into a live paint group. Click once and it is now a live paint group. So now I'm able to use the paint bucket to fill in the walls here. So in this case, I might want to use a color. This time let's use a much darker tone color. So I will go back to I could start with a earth tone and maybe use a very deep brown. Then I can go to my my color panel and tweak the brown to get the exact flavor that I want to get. After I get the right tone of brown, I think that's what I want there. Maybe I want to get it a bit more red there. Then I need to just drag it into my swatches so that it's now saved. Then all I need to do now is to fill in these walls here with this color. Okay, so what I'm doing is fill in these walls here. There we go. Oops. Now the key thing is you want to follow the same principle as the elevation. You want to select colors that also go well together. So like these glass blocks here, you perhaps want to choose like a blue. And I'll go around like that. Any color that you accidentally fill, like this would be like a nice green. So I would want to maybe go to my nature and choose foliage and pick one of these green colors. Let me save that in my swatches panel. And notice that I can't fill this area green because it doesn't close off here. Right, but that's okay. Now for your floor, you probably want to use a very light kind of color. So maybe I would go back to my gradients and maybe go to a earth tone, and I could pick one of these gradient color. That's actually a bit too bright. Now in most cases you might want to tweak your floor color. So what I suggest is, for your gradient, a gradient is not a single color, it is two colors. If you choose to use a single color, like let's say that color, then you would tweak it using using the same color panel, and I would try to make it a little lighter, very light, and let's save that in our swatches as well. There we go. So then I would try to fill in these areas, and maybe I would give the rooms a slightly different tone. So I might want to go to my color guide. Now I might be going a little faster now because most of this process is very similar, you know, where we're basically just applying colors. Right, let's make this a lighter color. There we go. That looks more, that looks a bit better. And let's make that a color, and let's put another color like that out here for the balcony. All right, so you know, you can choose any color you wish, but this would be my choice for colors. Now as it relates to the fixtures, now with the fixtures, for things like the countertops, you might want to use a nice brown kind of color. There we go. Make it a little bit darker so it's more pronounced. Like that. And maybe for the closets as well. There we go. And for the actual fixtures, what you would do is use the same method you use for the vehicles, for the entourage, where you would drag in that entourage here. Wait, before I do it, let me create a layer. So we're going to create a new layer and call that maybe fixtures. Then I want to browse to my downloaded folder and drag in that fixture layer. Right now it's pretty huge. There it is. So I want to make it a bit small so I can use my transform and just resize that really quickly using the mouse wheel. All right. Can spin this around. And I can actually replace with an actual object there. Now if you look in the folder, you should see some items you could use. This is a sink. Let's make it smaller again. We can just type in a value, maybe like 20. There we go. And we're gonna rotate that and make it smaller. And perhaps put it here. Use the mouse to get a more precise alignment. There we go. And pretty much you would use this throughout. Now there is something I want to highlight, because now you're going to have to lay out large spaces like this, and this is where your design intuition comes in. So if you don't have a furniture layout existing, then what you can do is use a reference image of a living room. Google a picture of a living room and then try and match that layout. So let's see, if I look for living room plan, there we go, and we could perhaps pick something that is a bit similar to what we are producing, and we can use that as a kind of guide. Actually, let's see, let's try and find one that would kind of look like what we have. So this is one approach, Now, if you don't need to be using a guide, you could just look through the categories of furniture and just create your own kind of designs. So for example, I'm going to drag in 3 different bits of furniture here. I'm going to resize them again. There we go. And an interesting thing to note, in this case, notice that this furniture looks a bit like it's floating, and also it's a bit out of scale. So you want to now make sure that your furniture is to scale. So let's say that we wanted to make the living area here, that, and maybe like that. Actually, we're going to use back, let's make a copy of this. Use it there. Let's make this a little bigger. The scale is slightly off. And let's rotate this one like that. Now, what you might notice is that in this case, this furniture looks almost like it is actually floating, and you might notice that some of the assets you use have this kind of feel. So what you would need to do in this case is to add a drop shadow. Now, to add a drop shadow, you're going to go to your, we don't need this right now. All right, to add a drop shadow, you're going to access your appearance panel. So this is a whole new panel that we're getting introduced to, and you basically use this panel to add effects, and effects you can see here with the symbol, and every time you add an effect, it adds to the listings in this list here. So right now we don't have any effects in that listing. So to add an effect, what we need to do is click the effect icon. Then we need to go to stylize and then drop shadow. Now once you do that, you're going to notice that you get a kind of weird drop shadow. So you need to adjust the blur. There we go. And adjust the distance. There we go. Choose OK. And then we have a drop shadow there. So notice now the furniture looks a bit more grounded in the scene. Now you might notice that these effects, that the shadow effects that you add in, looks a bit pixelated, and the reason for that is that the shadow settings is actually set to a low resolution. Now to change that option, just some of your illustrators might have this issue, some may not. To change this option, you want to go to Effect and go to Document Raster Effect Settings, and then you want to change the screen PPI to 300. And once you do that, notice that the shadows get a bit more high resolution. All of these effects gets a bit more high resolution. All right, now I'm only going to show you some examples here, and I'm going to leave you to actually create your own furniture layout. But I want to highlight something. When you click on this furniture here, notice that in your appearance tab, it shows you that it has a drop shadow. However, when you click on the next one, which is here, notice that it doesn't have a drop shadow. So this appearance panel keeps track of all your effects that you add to your objects. So in this case, I might want to select multiple objects and then go to effects and stylize, and then add a drop shadow, and it will add to the same thing. Now let's make this a little bit more transparent. There we go. It's still a bit heavy there, so I might want to tweak those shadow settings a little bit. So notice that I can actually select back the same objects, go to drop shadow here, and go back and tweak this setting here. So let's make it 0.5, and let's make it 20% transparent, maybe 30% transparent, and let's make the offset more like that, and choose OK. So you can find the setting that is right for you. Now additionally, remember that there are also like textures that you can place for rugs. So I've just dragged one in a while ago from the same folder. Let's make it a bit small again. There we go. And of course, you know, you would want to put this behind that layer. So let's create a new layer and call it rug. It's a good idea to always keep your layers organized. And I'm going to go to send to current layer. Now, as I said, okay, we need to put the furniture layer. Oh, the furniture was actually not on the furniture layer, so let's do that. Let's get the furniture on the fixture layer, actually. There we go. One of them is left. There we go. So now things are starting to look a bit nicer. And you can see that shadow really adds some depth to the drawing there. Now there are many other objects that you can add. For example, there is also plants that you could add. You know, and this, you can really make the spaces come to life. There are beds, there are tables, there are center tables. This is just one example, but you can use this example to populate the space. And the most important thing to do is to watch your scale, so that, you know, if it's too big, you need to just resize everything so that it's the correct scale. This is perhaps the most challenging thing that you might have to do, to watch your scale. Now, the idea is to now go in and populate all these rooms with plants and furniture to make it very populated, and to make it a very nice presentation floor plan. So when you are complete with your presentation, elevation, and floor plan, you will save this as a PDF file and upload. Take note that only what is on the artboard will be produced in the PDF, so you need to ensure that your drawings are on the artboard. Also remember, your text layer must be on so that your rooms can be labeled. You can move these labels around to more appropriate places, and you can also edit them. There we go. There we go. Then ensure that the drawing labels are there, and give your drawing a title using the text tool when you're done. Here we go. So we want to give your drawing a title, and we want to call it DDM exercise 4. And let's put that in the middle using the text tool. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So let's try font size 21. There we go. And then we want to name this presentation elevation. And then we want to copy this label here. Control C, Control V. And then we want to call this presentation plan. Get this centered. There we go. Okay, so go ahead and now complete these drawings by adding more detail using the entourage and assets in your exercise folder. All right, guys. Now, who is here and still alive with us? Just a few of you. I see just a few of you survived. All right.
Sir?
I'm saying I've seen just a few of you survived this exercise. I think we started off with about 20 people. But anyway, this will be available at the end, as usual, for you to complete. All right. This is perhaps one of the more important exercises because this is actually stuff that you'll be doing in architecture, school and beyond, right? There are even persons who I have worked with that I remember them from DDM days, and they're saying that, look, you know, the most of the stuff that they learned in DDM was the foundation for creating these beautiful artwork that they're doing of architectural designs, you know. So good luck, guys. I hope you try and have some fun with it. And then I'm gonna end up seeing you again next week for our final exercise, and then the module can really start, right? Now next week is gonna be SketchUp, so please ensure that you have SketchUp ready to go. All right, because we're gonna be going out of 2D and into 3D. All right. You can use SketchUp directly in your browser on the internet. It doesn't have to be the the pro version, but I'm recommending that you try to use the pro version. All right. Okay. All right, guys. So that is it for
The pro
our
version of SketchUp, sir?
yeah. You can, to do the exercise, you can use the web version, but eventually to do the assignment 1, you're gonna need you could still use the web version, but you're gonna have a hard time. So ultimately, you're gonna need to get the pro version, right? All right. So remember, you can contact Mr. Campbell and he can help you out with that. Okay. All right, guys. But in the meantime, that is it for class today. It was good hanging out with you guys, and I will see you next week, same time. This time
Sir,
exactly
before,
at 10 o'clock.
right before you leave, sir,
Mhm. Cool.
the class assignment 2, it's not taking responses yet. So before you leave, you have to email your answer.
Hold on. Exercise 2 is still not taking responses.
But the class activity 2.
Oh, the class activity 2. That's the one that we are going to
Yeah.
be doing. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. I'm actually going to. I think I have to rename that to 3 because this year it's going to be 3. So thank you for telling me that, because all of these forms I do have to enable them. because we turn them off at the end of every semester. So next week we're gonna go through the class activity. And then we're gonna jump into 3D. But you're gonna submit your class activity long before that. So no, we're looking at DDM. Class activity. Which one is it called now? It is image size, right. So that is going to be now class activity 3. So you might see class activity 3 come up. Well, you will see class activity 3 come up, image size, when you go on to present, to submit it. All right. And it is now enabled. So good
Yes, sir.
luck. I look forward to see what you select for your answers. All right. You do get the answers right as you submit it. All right. So you will you will know how much you get when you submit it. So good luck.
So yes,
All right.
sir, one more thing. So you said we must make some allowance for the DPI. So like don't make it exactly what.
Not the DPI. Once you select the DPI that you want to use, when you get the actual size of the image, you can scale it up. You can stretch it up to twice, up to 50%. Yeah, you can stretch it up to half its size, basically.
Okay.
Right. So if you got a width of 1,000 pixels, you can stretch it to 1,500 pixels. You know, and the same thing for the height. But more than that, you're asking for blurriness. All right.
All right, sir.
All right. Good luck. Take care, guys. Have a good rest of the week.
You too, sir.
Bye,
Alright.
sir.
Bye.